A very good morning, my dear students. We are continuing chapter 5, Sensation, Attention and Perceptual Processes, in which we had understand the concept of sensation. Sensation, that means a process through which we detect and encode different type of physical stimuli, and at the same time we also understand the attributes of the particular stimuli. For example, the stimuli, suppose we touch a particular cloth and suddenly we experience the coldness or the warmness of the cloth. Okay, so this is the example. These are the attributes: coldness, warmness, the color of the particular stimulus, the intensity. If we are talking about the auditory sensation or the auditory stimulus, so it may be melodious, or it may be painful, or it may be noisy. Okay. So this type of if we are talking about the fragrances, so maybe it is so much a beautiful smell, or it is something delicious smell, or you can say this smell is not very good, this is a bad smell. So the different kind of attributes about the stimulus we also detect, we also identify, we also encode by our sense organs. This process is basically known as sensation. We also understand the 5 major type of sense organs, which are the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, skin, and the 2 internal sense organs, which are known as kinesthetic and the vestibular systems of the our body. So these are 7 sense organs. Humans are basically blessed with these 7 type of sense organs, and we perceive so many varieties of stimulation, so many variety of stimulus in their environment, and by this we understand our world, we gain information about our internal and the external world. ठीक है, इसी के थ्रू हम इंफॉर्मेशन गेन करते हैं अपने एक्सटर्नल वर्ल्ड के बारे में एंड इंटरनल वर्ल्ड के बारे में. ठीक है, सो वी अंडरस्टैंड द सेंस मोडालिटी ऑल्सो. Modality, because a particular sense organ is specialized for a particular kind of information, particular kind of sensation, and this follows a process, a complex process. That's why this is known as sense modality. Okay, it performs lots of work related to a particular kind of stimulus. So this is the sense modality, which are very much specified for detecting a one kind of information. Now our next topic is a functional limitation of sense organs. What do you understand by the functional limitation? See one example. If your friend on the torch on your eyes, can you able to see things? If you are entering in a dark room, can you able to see things? If the voice is too much loud or too much slow, so you can detect it, you can able to hear the particular voice? Definitely not. So this is the limitation. Our sense organs, our specialized sense organs not receive all the signals, all the stimulus which are presented in the environment. They need a optimal level, a magnitude, a intensity of sound, or you can say the brightness. ठीक है, सो हमें किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टिमुलस को डिटेक्ट करने के लिए, उसे प्रोसेस करने के लिए उसकी कुछ मिनिमम वैल्यू चाहिए होती है. एवरेज लेवल, मतलब ह्यूमन ईयर किस एवरेज लेवल पे साउंड्स को, साउंड की वाइब्रेशंस को परसीव कर सकता है, उसे अंडरस्टैंड, उसे उसकी स्टिमुलेशन को फील कर सकता है, उसका एक ऑप्टिमल लेवल होता है. ठीक है, हम हर सारे साउंड को, अगर वो बहुत ज़्यादा लो साउंड है तो क्या हम उसे रिसीव कर सकते हैं, उसकी स्टिमुलेशन को फील कर सकते हैं? नहीं कर सकते. या बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सेसिव लाउड साउंड है तो भी हम उसे परसीव नहीं कर सकते. एट द सेम टाइम हम इसे स्मेल के थ्रू भी कह सकते हैं, या मतलब ऑल काइंड ऑफ सेंस ऑर्गन्स जितने हमारे हैं उनकी कुछ लिमिटेशन होती है. वो एक रेंज के उस रेंज में जो उनकी एक रेंज होती है, और उस रेंज में जो भी स्टिमुलस होते हैं वो सिर्फ उन्हें डिटेक्ट कर सकते हैं, उन्हें परसीव कर सकते हैं. ऑल द काइंड ऑफ सेंसेशन, ऑल द काइंड ऑफ जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है, सबको वो प्रोसेस नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है, सो दिस इज नोन एज द फंक्शनल लिमिटेशन ऑफ सेंस ऑर्गन्स. सो हर एक सेंस ऑर्गन्स की कुछ फंक्शनल लिमिटेशंस होती है, वो एक रेंज के अंदर के जो स्टिमुलस होते हैं सिर्फ उन्हीं को रिसीव कर सकते हैं, उन्हीं को आगे प्रोसेस कर सकते हैं. सो सी as humans, eyes, ear and other organs not possible to notice all stimuli. ठीक है, हमें और सारे स्टूमुलस को हम एक साथ साइमल्टेनियसली प्रोसेस नहीं कर सकते, रिसीव नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है, सो हम क्या करते हैं, एंड हम सारे स्टूमुलस में डिफरेंस भी नहीं कर सकते. दिस इज ऑल्सो अवर लिमिटेशन. ठीक है, जैसे कि हम सभी स्टूमुलस को परसीव नहीं करते, एज द सेम वे हम डिफ्रेंशिएट भी नहीं कर पाते टू स्टूमुलस में, अगर वो बहुत ज़्यादा डिफरेंट ना हो तो. ठीक है, सो दिस अगेन दिस इज आवर फंक्शनल लिमिटेशन. सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट these two concepts, the detecting of the particular stimulus on the basis of a range and the difference between the two stimulus. So the two concepts which are under in it, that is the absolute threshold or the absolute Lyman, and the differential threshold or the differential Lyman. Okay, the DL and the AL, these are the two concepts which explain the functional limitations of our sense organs. Let's move on the topic. So this is explained कि for being noticed by a sensory receptors which are presented in on your sense organs, a stimulus has to be of optimal intensity or magnitude. एक ऑप्टिमल लेवल की इंटेंसिटी और मैग्नीट्यूड होना चाहिए. दिस इज रिक्वायर्ड, दिस इज नेसेसरी ओनली देन आवर रिसेप्टर्स आर रिसीव द सिग्नल्स. ओके, एंड a branch of psychology which studied these phenomena, the different kind of stimulus magnitude and the intensity, which is known as the psychophysics. Psychophysics is a branch of psychology which studies about the stimulus and the sensation related issues. So this branch studies relationship between the stimuli and sensations they evoke. Now move to the AL, absolute threshold or absolute Lyman, which is known as AL. So minimum value of a stimulus required to activate a given sensory system. ठीक है, for example, एक example लेते हैं. You take a glass of water and add 2 spoon of sugar on it and dilute it. ठीक है, after that if you taste it, you can say this is the sweet, the taste is sweet. ठीक है, just imagine if you add only few crystals of the sugar on the glass, can you imagine the taste of sweetness? No, because there is the quantity of this sugar is very less, which is not diluted and mixed with the water, and you cannot feel the taste of sweetness. ठीक है, तो अगर मतलब हमें अगर उसमें स्वीटनेस फील करना है तो हमें क्या करना होगा, हमको मोर एंड मोर शुगर ऐड करना होगा. ठीक है, सपोज हमने टू क्रिस्टल ऐड किया उस वाटर में एंड वी डाइल्यूट इट, बट वी कैन नॉट फील द स्वीटनेस. अगेन वी एड ऑन few crystals of the sugar, then again, and इस प्रोसेस के थ्रू सपोज हमने हाफ स्पून ऑफ शुगर एड ऑन किया उस वाटर में एंड मिक्स किया, एंड आफ्टर दैट व्हेन वी टेस्ट इट वी फील लिटिल बिट स्वीटनेस. ठीक है, and after that when we add in half teaspoon more sugar, then we experience the glass of water is really sweet. ठीक है, so this is the quantity, this is the minimum quantity which recognizes as a sweetness. ठीक है, जिसने एक मिनिमम क्वांटिटी होनी चाहिए किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टिमुलस की, उसमें प्रेजेंट होने की, उसके बेसिस पे हम उसे स्वीट कह सकते हैं. ठीक है, so in this example, if you add a granule of sugar to a glass of water, you may not experience any sweetness and in that water. So addition of a second granule to water may also not make it taste sweet, but if you go on adding sugar granules on after another, there will become a point when you will say that the water is now sweet. So the minimum number of sugar granules required to say that the water is sweet will be the AL. The sweetness is the AL. ठीक है, the sweetness जो है उस glass of water में, this is the AL. The minimum level which are required to taste water sweet. ठीक है, जो water है उसको sweetness के taste में consider करने के लिए, so this minimum level is basically known as the AL or the absolute threshold or the absolute Lyman of sweetness. ठीक है, So in order to be noticed, a stimulus has carry a minimum value or weight. So the minimum value of a stimulus required to activate a given sensory system is called absolute threshold. ठीक है? अब just imagine there is a variations in a person to person. ठीक है? And even in your time, sometime you feel when you are feeling so much fatigue, when you are not in proper mood, you are fast. ठीक है? अगर आपका फास्ट रहता है तो आफ्टर डे कंप्लीशन जब आप एट इवनिंग और ग्लास ऑफ वाटर लेते हो शुगर के साथ, सो यू कैन फील दिस इज़ नॉट स्वीट. ठीक है? उस टाइम पे मोर स्वीटनेस रिक्वायर्ड होती है. सो बहुत सारे मूड स्टेट्स हो सकते हैं, बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हो सकते हैं इंडिविजुअल के जो इसमें वेरिएशंस क्रिएट करें. ठीक है? सो इंडिविजुअल डिफरेंशियल इसमें आप पाए जाएंगे. मे बी आपको ये वाटर स्वीट लग रहा है एट द दिस लेवल, बट सम इंडिविजुअल, कोई और इंडिविजुअल अगर उसको टेस्ट कर रहा है तो वो कह रहा है कि नो दिस इज नॉट सफिशिएंट स्वीट, दिस इज नॉट स्वीट. ठीक है? सो उस टाइम पे हम हाउ वी डिसाइड द AL, देयर इज अ इंडिविजुअल डिफरेंसेस, सो हाउ वी डिसाइड द AL वैल्यू. सो इन दिस केस वी put up the 50% trial. ठीक है? when we are conducting the 100 trial and the 50 times एक इंडिविजुअल किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टिमुलस को फील करता है, सपोज स्वीटनेस को फील करता है, देन वी से दिस इज द AL वैल्यू ऑफ द स्वीटनेस ऑन द वाटर. ठीक है? सो दैट्स मीन हमें किसी पर्टिकुलर स्टिमुलस के AL को डिसाइड करने के लिए उसको हम जो 100 ट्रायल है ना उसमें से हमको 50% टाइम, मतलब 50 टाइम हमें उसे फील होना चाहिए, वो स्टिमुलेशन हमें फील होना चाहिए. ओनली देन वी कंसीडर दिस मिनिमम वैल्यू एज अ AL. दिस इज द वन कॉन्सेप्ट. अनदर कॉन्सेप्ट इज द DL. लेट्स मूव ऑन द DL. सो दिस इज द DL, दैट्स मीन डिफरेंशियल थ्रेशोल्ड. ठीक है? सो एज AL, it may be noted at this point that the AL is not a fixed point. So instead it varies considerably across individuals and situations, depend on the people's organic conditions and the motivational states. So hence we have to assess it on the basis of a number of trials. The number of sugar granules that may produce the experience of sweetness in water on 50% of occasions will be called the AL of sweetness. So if you add more number of sugar granules, then the chance of are greater than the water will be reported more often as sweet than plain. Okay? So as the AL concept, there is a DL concept also. DL, that means we cannot detect the difference between the two stimulus on the basis of a minimum difference. ठीक है? हम without a minimum difference, a minimum amount of the difference, we cannot discriminate between the two stimulus. So the minimum level of the difference which compulsory, which necessary for recognizing, for understanding two different kind of stimulus, this is the differential threshold. Now see the concept. So as it is not possible for us to notice all stimuli, it is not possible to differentiate between all stimulus or the all stimuli. So in order to notice two stimulus as different from each other, there has to be some minimum difference between the values of those stimulus or the values of those stimuli. So the smallest difference in the value of two stimuli that is necessary to notice them as different is called differential threshold or the differential Lyman. So to understand it, we may continue with our sugar water experiment. Okay? So in this, see, when you put up in a sugar granules in a more and more, and you experience the sweetness in a water. Okay? Imagine you add on some more sugar granules, then some more sugar granules on the 2 to 3 times, and you feel that this sweetness of the water is different from the previous one. Okay? When you are adding, suppose 5 to 6 spoon of sugar on the half glass of water, so this sweetness is as compared to the previous one, where the in a 1 glass of water the adding the 2 spoon of the sugar is definitely sweet. The previous one is lesser sweet, and the next is the high sweet, or you can say the more sweet. Okay, so this experiment is basically prove the difference between the two type of sweetness, the previous one and the later one. So in a continue to the sugar water experiment, as we have seen, the plain water is experienced as a sweet after the addition of certain number of sugar granules. Let us remember these sweetness. The next question is, how many sugar granules will be needed in the water in order to experience its sweetness as different from the previous sweetness? That means the quantity of the sugar granules which required, the minimum quantity of the sugar granules which is required for detecting or for sensation of the difference between the two kind of sweetness, the previous one and the next one. So go on, different from the previous sweetness. So go on adding sugar granules one after another, tasting the water each time, and after addition a few granules, you will notice at a point that the water is now sweeter than the previous one. So the minimum quantity, the minimum amount of sugar granules which are required, which are necessary for detecting, for feeling of the different kind of sweetness, is considered as the DL. The number of sugar granules added to the water to generate an experience of sweetness that is different from the previous sweetness on 50% of the occasion will be called the DL of the sweetness. Again, in this case also there are this cases at least 50% time of the हमें experience होना चाहिए, हमें perceive होना चाहिए. Only then we can say this is the minimum level of the DL. This is the DL. This is the minimum level of the particular stimulus which are necessary for the recognizing or for the detecting. Okay, so thus differential threshold is the minimum amount of change in a physical stimulus that is capable of producing a sensation different or the difference on 50% of the trials. Okay, so smallest difference in the value of two stimuli that is necessary to notice them as different. Okay, this is called DL. And minimum amount of change in a physical stimuli that is capable of producing a sensation difference in a 50% of the class. So this is the concept of the AL and DL. So you may realize by now that understanding of sensation is not possible without understanding the AL and the DL of different type of stimuli. For example, visual, audition, but that is not enough. Sensory processes do not depend only on the stimulus characteristic. Sense organs and the neural pathway connecting them to various brain centers also play a vital role in these processes. So a sense organs receive the stimulation and encode it as an electrical impulse. For being noticed, this electrical impulse must reach the higher brain centers, and any structural or functional defect or damage in the receptor organ, its neural pathway or the concerned brain areas may lead to a partial or complete loss of sensation. So that means for understanding the sensation, for understanding our sensory organs and the whole process of the sensation, attention and the perception, we need here to understand the not only the AL and the DL but also the whole mechanism which are responsible for अंडरस्टैंडिंग आवर वर्ल्ड. ठीक है, हमें अपने वर्ल्ड के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन देने के लिए जो होल प्रोसेस है उसे अंडरस्टैंड करना बहुत रिक्वायर्ड है. ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ, नॉट ओनली ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द AL एंड DL, हम अंडरस्टैंड कर सकते हैं ऑल द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक, ऑल द प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ द सेंसेशन, बट देयर इज नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द होल प्रोसेस ऑल्सो. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. सपोज your AL and DL is intact. There is no issue for the environmental side जहाँ से आप perceive नहीं कर पा रहे हो, या suppose your receptors are receive the sensation. Your eyes is intact, your eyes is workable, there is no defect, there is no problem. Your eyes is receive the signals, but still you cannot able to see a particular signal, particular things. Okay? So maybe the defect is on the neural pathways. Your receptors is intact, they receive the signals, but your neural pathways are not processing it forward. This is the damage of your neural pathways, which are process the information to the higher authority, to the higher part of the brain, which are the responsible part of the particular type of stimulation. Okay? So if suppose the neural pathways are also intact, there is no issue, your eyes is receive the signal, the neural pathway convey it to the higher authority, but still you cannot able to see the things. So maybe the problem, that damage is on your head, on your brain areas which are concerned for the particular type of sensation. Okay? The concerned areas of the brain which are responsible the visual sensation, maybe this part is damaged. So there is different processes, different angles which are, the whole function is required. Okay? Maybe the neural pathways are intact, the brain part which are responsible for the visual sensation are intact, but your receptors is not receive the signals. Maybe the problem is with your receptors, or maybe the problem in with the AL and the DL. You cannot perceive a visual signal because the AL is not appropriate, the AL is less than 50%, or you can say the AL amount is very less, the DL is not here. So maybe problem is at any point, at any time. तो कोई भी problem हो सकती है. So for understanding the whole concept of sensation, there is need to understand the whole process of sensation. First of all, the AL and DL of the stimulus, that this is the characteristic of the stimulus. This is not the characteristic of the organism. ठीक है? This is the characteristic, this is the features of the stimulus. कि उस स्टिमुलस की जो मैग्नीट्यूड है, स्टिमुलस की जो इंटेंसिटी है, वो एक मिनिमम लेवल की होनी चाहिए. ओनली देन वी कैन डिटेक्ट इट, वी कैन परसीव इट, वी कैन रिसीव इट. ठीक है? नाउ व्हेन वी आर रिसीविंग द सिग्नल्स, we process the signals, there are so many parts involved. For example, the eyes, when we are talking about the visual sensation, so there is a eye, then the neural pathway, then the higher brain centers. ठीक है? So all are, if intact, all are functioning well, only then we can feel the we can experience the sensation. ठीक है? If there is problem in any point, maybe on neural path, maybe on receptors, maybe on the AL or DL, and maybe on the brain. If there is a problem in any point, so we cannot experience the sensation as in a proper way as we see as a normal. So our sensory processes depends on stimulus characteristic. Stimulus characteristic, that means the magnitude, the intensity, the AL and the DL, all are characteristic of the stimulus. Then again, sense organs and the neural pathways connecting them to various brain centers. Okay? Now, the sense organs where has the receptors receive the signals, and through the neural pathways it send it to the various brain centers which are the responsible centers for the for the sensation. So a sense organ receive a stimulus and encode it as an electrical impulse, or it reach the higher brain centers. So this is the whole process through which we attend the sensation. As the same, for understanding these whole process, we also need to understand the attention and the perceptual processes. So there is sensation is a minimum information. This is the half information basically. This is the half information about the sensation. When we add on the attention and the perception also, then the information is completed and we understand the particular kind of information and we understand the world. Okay. So this is the whole process through which we receive the information which are presented in our environment. Now in the next section we have to discuss the visual sensation, that's mean the structure of eye and the function of eye, and the auditory sensation. Okay, the structure and the function of the ear. So these two sense organs are more important. Almost 80% information of about the environment we receive through the auditory sensation and the visual sensation. These are more active receptors, the more functional receptors in human beings. The human eye and the ear are receiving the 80% sensations about the world. So this is two systems which are most important. That's why there is a need to understand in detail according to the structure and the functions. So that's why we can here explain these two systems in a detail. So first of all, the visual sensation. Visual sensation, that means related to the color, related to the size, related to the figure, related to the image, related to the any object's image. Okay? So this is the visual which we perceive through our eyes. So main sense organ of the for the visual sensation is our eye. So there is need to understand the structure of the eye. एंड आई थिंक आपने पहले भी कभी जूनियर क्लासेस में स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ आई, स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ ईयर डेफिनेटली पढ़ा होगा. एज यू अपने नर्वस सिस्टम जैसे पढ़ा है, डेफिनेटली जूनियर क्लासेस में आपने स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ आई भी पढ़ा होगा. आई थिंक फिजिक्स में ये कॉन्सेप्ट है इन द सेंस ऑफ जहाँ पे आप मिरर्स वगैरह को पढ़ते हो वहाँ पे उस सेंस में. नाउ लेट्स स्टार्ट द विजुअल सेंसेशन. सो इन विजुअल सेंसेशन, among all sense modalities, vision is the most highly developed in human beings, and various estimates indicate that we use it in approximately 80% of our transactions with the external world. So audition and other sense also contribute significantly to information gathering from the external world. We shall discuss vision and audition in some details. So the main feature of other senses can be also there, but visual sensation and the auditory sensation is most important. So visual sensation start when light enters the eye and stimulates our visual receptor. Our eyes are sensitive to a spectrum of light, the wavelength of which ranges from 380 nanometer to the 780 nanometer. Nanometer refers to the nm जो है, this is the refers to the nanometer which is 1 billionth of a meter. ठीक है, nanometer जो होता है this is the 1 billionth of a meter, and through nanometer we symbolize the wavelength. So our wavelength, our normal wavelength जिसके थ्रू हम विजुअल सिग्नल्स को डिटेक्ट कर पाते, परसीव कर पाते हैं, दिस इज दी 380 नैनोमीटर टू द 780 नैनोमीटर. दिस इज दी अवर रेंज. ठीक है, जिसकी हम बात एल में कर रहे थे. सो दिस इज दी रेंज 380 टू 780 नैनोमीटर का अगर वेवलेंथ होगा, ओनली देन हम विजुअल सेंसेशन को डिटेक्ट कर पाएंगे, उससे प्रोसेस कर पाएंगे. सो दिस इज दी एल ऑफ दी visual sensation, AL for the visual sensation. So no sensation is registered beyond this range of light. इससे ऊपर की या नीचे की रेंज में अगर कोई सेंसेशन है तो उसे उसको हम लाइट के थ्रू नहीं परसीव कर सकते. So this is the our functional limitation. This is the functional limitation of our visual sensation. So in this, the structure of eye. So the main part of the visual sensation is the eye, the human eye. So the eye, the structure of eye and the function of eye, which we will cover in the next video because there is a time limitation. So this is all about today. Let's revise the concept. We start the video with the revision of the previous video, which is the concept of sensation, the types of sense organs, which are 7 in number, and the sense modality, which are specialized functions, specialized processes of the sense organs. These are the sense modality. After that, we start the video with the topic of the functional limitation of sense organs. ठीक है. Our sense organs not receive all the kind of information which are presented in the our surrounding, in our environment. We receive only the few information, the selective information, and we process it further. So the psychophysics is a branch which are studied about the magnitude and the intensity about the stimulus relationship between the सेंस ऑर्गन्स. इस टॉपिक को रिसर्च करता है, इस टॉपिक को स्टडी करता है बेसिकली अ ब्रांच ऑफ साइकोलॉजी विच इज नोन एज साइकोफिजिक्स. And after that we understand the concept of AL and the DL. AL that's mean absolute Lyman, and the DL that's mean the differential Lyman or the difference Lyman. ठीक है. So what is the absolute threshold or the absolute Lyman? So the minimum value of a stimulus which required to activate a given sensory system is called AL, and the smallest difference in the value of two stimuli that is necessary to notice them as different is called differential Lyman or the differential threshold. So this is the AL and the DL. After that we understand the sensory processing. Okay, how the sensation is processed. So first of all the stimulus characteristics. Stimulus को एक मिनिमम इंटेंसिटी और एक मिनिमम मैग्नीट्यूड के साथ प्रेजेंट होना चाहिए ओनली व्हेन वी डिटेक्ट इट. देन द सेंस ऑर्गन्स विच आर रिसीव द इंफॉर्मेशन which are presented in our environment. Then the neural pathways which send the information through the higher center, the brain centers. So neural pathways are also very important. Then the brain part, representative part which are responsible for our sensations. So a sense organ receive a stimulus and encode it as an electrical impulse, and it reaches the higher brain centers. Only then we perceive the information. Okay? You can understand the concept of perception on the later part of this chapter. So you can understand when we understand the sensation, when we comprehend the sensation, when we add on the meaning on the sensation, this is the perception. When we understand the concept exactly in a manner, then we say this is the perception of the particular stimulus which are presented in our environment. After that we start the visual sensation. The two important sensations, the visual and the auditory, the two important systems, two important sense organs, visual sense organs and the auditory sense organs which receive the visual and the auditory signals. So this is all about today videos. In the next video we start the human eye structure along with their functions. So in this in the homework you have to draw a figure of eye on your notebook, and this is necessary to share with me on your WhatsApp group. ठीक है, आपको WhatsApp ग्रुप पे ह्यूमन आई का एक ब्यूटीफुल का कलरफुल फिगर बनाना है. बड़े पेज पे मतलब बड़े साइज में बनाओगे. आफ्टर दैट शेयर विथ मी. ठीक है, अपने आप व्हाट्सएप नंबर से आप इसे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप जो हमने बना रखा है साइकोलॉजी का, वहाँ पे आप मुझे शेयर करोगे. वहाँ से दिस इज़ कंपल्सरी, आपको आज ये वर्क कंप्लीट करके देना है मुझे. This is all about today. In the next video we start the human eye.